Welcome back to Four Sisters, where we will give you tips on self care, self awareness, self confidence, and show you all the ways you can love yourself. So get ready to laugh, cuss, cry, and pray. Well, hello, everybody.
Hey, girl.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Out here surviving. We still here, kicking it in North Kakalaki. Florence ain't take us away. We made it. Everybody's family doing okay?
Yes. Girl, you gonna say hey to the people?
Hey. What it do? Right? I'm sorry, I was looking for something. At least I was being honest.
I didn't say nothing.
Well, I'm glad everyone's week's doing is okay. Hope your Mondays be fabulous tomorrow. Dani, what do you have for us today?
Wasn't ready yet.
What?
Don't rush me. Let me stop. Yeah. All right. So, this week in rants, reads, and resolutions, I guess I'm going to do, I don't know, would it be considered well, it's more of a resolution, I guess. I don't really know. Y'all tell me at the end. So, there's a few different options regarding, either or. So, this week in rants, reads, and resolutions, we're going to discuss two different things. I have a love-hate relationship with him. This week I have a love relationship with him, Charlemagne The God. Charlemagne The God has a book coming out called Shook One, Anxiety Playing Tricks on Me. And the gist of the book is specifically him talking about his issues with anxiety and how he's overcoming his issues with anxiety, as well as he has an actual psychiatrist narrating the book with him and giving like actual tips on anxiety and how you deal with anxiety, etc. And so I think that's a cool thing. The caption for the book is called Reveals His Blueprint for Breaking Free from Your Fears and Anxiety to Reach the Elusive Next Level of Success. Okay. How fear is holding you back. So, shout out to him for that book, because I know his first book was pretty much giving his life story, but this one is a lot more geared towards mental health, specifically anxiety, and how he wants other people to deal with their mental health or support other people dealing with their mental health. And then I'm going to also plug in The Read. They had an episode, I want to say it was 1 or 2 episodes back, regarding their anxiety. Crystal has this thing called Crystal's Couch. Some of us know about it, some don't. But with Crystal's Couch, she talks every week about
most
shade.
Don't.
Okay. But every week she talks about something different regarding mental health and things that she's learned while she's been in therapy. So she's not being a psychiatrist or a therapist. She's just telling us what she's learned while she's been in therapy. And she talks a lot about 2 things, depression and anxiety. And about maybe 2 episodes ago, and I want to say it was either 2 or 3, she talked about anxiety and how her anxiety is so debilitating sometimes that she's not able to write and do the things that she truly loves because, she has this underlying fear that she may not be good enough or may not be good enough or etc. So between Charlemagne The God and Kid Fury and Crystal, I feel like a lot of times I think mental health and anxiety specifically are the 2 things that we don't really talk about. Everybody knows about depression, but a lot of people don't talk about anxiety that much. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is a resolution regarding the conversation in the book and what they're saying on the podcast is it's good to be aware of it, but it's even better to figure out how to address it. And with Charlemagne having the book and giving you actual tips on how to address it, and then Crystal doing Crystal's Couch or Crystal's Corner. I don't think she's actually named it. But she's giving you like real life scenarios on how to address anxiety. I feel like listening to whatever, which is a podcast or book on tape or reading the book or whatever, just buy the book, listen to the podcast, support them because it's something that could actually help you as well. So shout out to them for having open and honest conversations about anxiety, no matter how hard it is. It's very hard to talk about it. And then creating a platform for people to actually understand it, learn it, and then move forward and make sure it doesn't become something that's debilitating. Yeah. So I guess that's a resolution.
Yeah, because on the friend zone, which I'm caught up. I don't know.
I don't need to be caught up.
They talk a lot about anxiety as well and give very lots of helpful tips. Fran addresses it a lot in her wellness segment, but different things you can do. Like one of the things that they talked about in one of the episodes were like talking about weighted blankets, and then talking about she was talking about this bean bag thing that you could put on your feet. So like whenever you get ready to go to sleep, it kind of like weighs you down and gives that support and comfort. So that's one thing that I'm going to try to DIY is like a little, I think it's a rice bag for sleeping.
I think it's cool that, I don't know if it's just recently or maybe I'm just now noticing it. Y'all can correct me whichever way. But I feel like Black celebrities are now really talking about mental health. Like before, it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, we don't talk about that, or it's not real or whatever. But now I feel like we really are having a lot of people who are very like large figures in the community talking about mental health. And, not only mental health, but how it impacts them specifically. And being very forthright and honest with, their audience about like, okay, if I can talk about it, so can y'all. Like, Charlemagne go to therapy every Friday at 3:00. And Crystal and Kid Fury always, promoting their therapy. And we learned on the last episode that Crystal and Kid Fury have a Black psychiatrist who also does therapy. So they get their medication. They could get their medication and the therapy in this like one pop shop.
And I'm noticing that that's more common in bigger states, that the psychiatrist is the therapist as well. And they get very frustrated when it comes to North Carolina.
Yeah, we don't got that.
Because we don't have that. And coming from like Texas and places like that, they're like, you're not the same person?
Yeah.
So I got to go to another facility.
Yeah. I mean, you can.
So don't talk to me about your meds. I'm not that gal.
Yeah, but I think it's really cool because, like I said, it's just, I know growing up, when I used to feel like I was having anxiety, depression, my mom would tell me to take an Advil, lay down, take a nap, all kinds of random things. Yeah, like, lay down, take a nap, you be all right. But, like, now that I'm older, I identify, like, okay, I really was not all right. And it's good that now that people are getting education, they can bring it down to their next generation or their kids, and then everybody after, so we can make it like a more known thing. So that's my resolution. Be more mindful of what anxiety and all those other things are.
Thanks, Dani.
That was good. What you got for us, Kay?
All right, this week I'm back, guys. It's been a few weeks. Some of my lovely lady co-hosts here have been stepping in and doing some great case corners. This week we're going to continue with anxiety and talk a little bit more about what anxiety is, how you can support somebody with anxiety, how you can support yourself with anxiety, and understanding in general what it is, in a sense, because there's a difference between anxiety and anxiety disorder. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is the natural response of the body to stress. So it's that worry, fear, apprehension of basically what's next. So we all have those moments. It can be a new job, new relationship, moving to a new place, etc. So we all have some form of anxiety, but at some point it turns into an anxiety disorder when the thoughts and the worry become excessive. And so when I mean excessive, so you're constantly worried about it for a longer period of time that normally consists of 3 to 6 months, relatively, which disrupts, important part, it disrupts and affects your ability to function on the daily. Mm-hmm. So some of the common characteristics of an anxiety disorder can be constant excessive worry, that's one, increased heart rate, rapid breathing, restlessness, trouble focusing and concentrating, sleep disruption. That's the big one, and that's probably one of the number ones that you will probably recognize, is that sleep disruption. So why is sleep disruption so prevalent? Most of the time when we're dealing with anxiety, the first thing that we go to is distraction. So if something is bothering us, we're going to go to the next thing that can keep us going and keep us from thinking about that thing. And then when we lay down and go to sleep, that's when that opportunity for the brain to catch up with us. And so you can't sleep because now it's my turn, basically, is what the brain is saying. I need to get this out, and I need you to listen and understand what I'm doing. So it's basically turning into a bully, so you can't fall asleep, or you're waking up out your sleep, you're having anxious dreams, because that's me. Like, I'll have an anxious, provoked dream because I ignored all the signs and symptoms all day. And now I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning knowing I got to go to work at 6. So those are some of the common characteristics of anxiety. Not all of them, because you can have it's just it goes a little deep, but that's some general ones.
A lot of physical symptoms
I was about to say
too. I would say like people come in a lot and they're having like
stomach pains,
or they're having all these pains and aches in their body, or they're feeling really anxious about their health. They're like, I've been going to the doctor because I feel like I'm dying, and the doctor keeps telling me it's just my anxiety, and they're very frustrated about it. And so having to have that conversation about, the pain in your body is real, but it's coming from worry and not coming from some kind of illness, some other kind of illness.
And one thing I would link to that when you say the whole situation about going to the doctor, a lot of times what comes back and linked to anxiety as well is high blood pressure. High blood pressure is linked to anxiety because of that increase of the heart rate and things like that. So that's one of the number one things that we kind of sort of see. Well, I know I see in my office is that they had an increase, their blood pressure is off, and the doctor tell them that it's linked to anxiety, and then they end up in my office.
Right. That or ADHD, like they can't focus at work and they're struggling to get tasks and things done. And they're like, I don't know what's happening. Like I need to work to pay my bills, but when I'm sitting there, I'm just dazing, or I can't complete tasks. So that's another sign that you may be experiencing some anxiety, especially if you've been functioning fine and now all of a sudden this is like something that is a struggle for you.
Right. I think that's the distinction you can put between an ADHD diagnosis versus a anxiety disorder, especially in adulthood.
Right.
Is like, when did you start to not be able to function? Like, you can't tell me you started to not be able to function 3 months ago and now you got ADHD. It don't work like that.
Yeah, it didn't. ADHD don't just pop up on you.
It don't work like that. Some types of anxiety disorder can be generalized anxiety, and generalized anxiety is basically saying that your worry can be attached to just about anything. It can be me worried about my kids going to stay overnight somewhere versus me having a big trip out of the country. So it can attach to almost anything and cause those debilitating symptoms that we see in anxiety disorders. Social anxiety is another one. Separation anxiety. So when you think separation anxiety, that's that fear of being away from someone or something happening to someone that you love when you're away from them. That OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, known as OCD. It's broken down into two different ways. You can have obsessions and then you can have compulsions. An example of obsessions would be like fear of germs and contamination and things like that. And then the opposite side of that is the compulsion. Well, the action side of that is the compulsions, which is that excessive hand washing as an example, repeated checking things, like you're locking the door over and over again, or there's a certain routine that you have to have at nighttime.
That's what this is, my life story.
Oh, God.
Oh, we're getting to you.
My innermost
little pig. We're getting there. Go ahead, Kay.
But those are the compulsion pieces of OCD. PTSD, people don't understand, that's an anxiety disorder. It's some depressive pieces in there, but PTSD is basically an anxiety disorder. But when you think about it, of course it is. You was in fear of, right? It's a very fear-based disorder. Agoraphobia, fear of places without immediate escape, so like buses and crowded malls and playgrounds and for kids and things like that. Like you can develop agoraphobia based off of not based off of those things, but when you have fear of those types of places, that's when agoraphobia becomes the disorder that is. Panic disorder. So panic disorder has those same characteristics of anxiety, but what's added to that is that fear, that feeling of faint or dizziness, and sometimes people do actually pass out. Shortness of breath, the dry mouth, sweating, chills or hot flash, numbing or tingling. So that is when it becomes like that panic disorder, and that's when it gets to that stage. We're normally probably going to see you in the ER. Because people don't know what's going on with their body.
Like they might think that they're having a heart attack or a
yeah.
stroke or something. It really is anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing to remember about panic disorder is that it's not even just the presence of having a panic attack, it's also the debilitating fear of having a panic attack that either like shuts you down or even causes the panic attack.
Right. So once you have that first one, especially after you have that first one, it's always that fear of when is it going to pop up again.
Because you could have any of these other anxiety disorders with panic attacks, but panic disorder is a whole nother beast.
It is a beast. Some statistics that I found that I thought would be interesting for us to kind of sort of process a little bit is anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting 40 million adults in the United States, 18 and older, or 18.1% of the population every year. So I guess that goes back to what Dani was saying, is that like the celebrities are now speaking up a lot more about like anxiety and things like that. Hopefully that's like helping to end that stigma. It won't, in a sense, end the stigma, but helping to kind of sort of end that stigma, because anxiety is like one of the number one mental illnesses that is affecting us, and it's an underlying disorder that probably connects to a whole lot of different disorders, in my opinion, but we don't address that anxiety piece of it because it may be connected or some shame connected to it. Anxiety disorders are highly treatable, yet only 36.9% of those suffer and receive treatment. So that goes back to that whole idea of the shame connected to basically suffering from an anxiety disorder, and all those opportunities for people to say, ain't nothing wrong with you type situation, and you don't want to deal with that. People with an anxiety disorder are 3 to 5 times more likely to go to the doctor and 6 times more likely to be hospitalized for psychiatric disorders than those who do not suffer from anxiety disorders. And I would add that to say, like, that's more so your unmanaged anxiety, meaning like you have no coping skills, not aware that it's actually anxiety that's like causing all of these things, and it's kind of sort of manufacturing other things to go on with your body.
Or I would say one thing too, I guess from my own experience, people will come in and they'll say, oh yeah, I've had anxiety for years and I've just been taking medication, but now it's at the point, I've had anxiety for 15 years, but now I want to come in and talk to somebody about it. And so it's like a lot of times people will just go and get medication and try to function based off of that, not realizing that you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on a gash.
And you see, yeah, like you said, I see that a lot of people saying like, well, I've been taking the medicine and I've been fine. Like, when you took the medicine and you stabilized, because that's basically all the medication's purpose is, to stabilize you. Right. Did you add any skills on top of that? And if you didn't add any skills on top of that, your medicine is going to stop working because it's tired of doing all of the work itself. And another interesting thing that I see in my office, and I also saw this as a statistic as well, is that women are 2 times more likely to suffer from anxiety disorders than males. And that's, to me, that's I mean, think about us as women. We're nurturers. Like, we're known to worry. We're always worrying about somebody else before we worry about ourselves. Yep. So genetically, we're made up that way to worry, but sometimes it debilitates us and we don't take care of ourselves. We don't mind our business, as Sasha would say.
Yeah. Or that I'll do it myself mentality. Right. Like, I'm not going to delegate anything because I can't rely on people. I'm going to try to do it all myself. But now I'm burnt out because I've been doing everything myself.
And that as one symptom that I did not put in the symptom, as you're saying, that easily irritated. Now you try to do everything by yourself. Nobody's ever helping you, and you've already set the tone for that, and you are wanting them to step in now, but they don't know how. You start to get irritated because they're not doing it to the capacity that you needed them to do it to, or they're not living up to the standard that you wanted them to. But then this whole time, all these years, you've been doing it by yourself. And so now you're irritated with the situation because it's become uncontrollable. And with anxiety, with someone who suffers from anxiety personally, we love control.
Yeah, that'll be that person who is like super type A, that's like organized down to the socks.
Yes.
It was an episode of The Friend Zone where Friend talked about, like, is your anxiety, or she might have tweeted it. She was talking about, is your anxiety who you are, or is it a consequence of something that you've gone through? And like really having people sit down and think about it. Like, did you become anxious because of some stuff? Like, stop, attributing things to your personality that aren't your personality.
Right. Mm-hmm. And understand you're not anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, people like to, like, oh, that's just my anxiety, or like kind of sort of like making it a part of them. It's a part of you, but you make it so big.
Yeah.
To the point where it consumes you.
And so it's like, that's just your anxiety. What are you doing about that anxiety so that it can just not be your anxiety?
My next topic is depression and anxiety linked together? It probably is, and it could be, and sometimes they're just separate. When you think of anxiety, one of the number one signs that when someone's coming to my office, they have excessive worry and that ability to, at some point, not be in control. So that loss of control is something that's very prominent when you have an anxiety disorder. One of the links to depression is hopelessness. When you feel loss of control, you're going to sink into that whole level of depression. So yes, they can very well be linked together. You're more likely to go into a depressive state when you're dealing with anxiety because you're not listening to the signs or playing to what the needs are of the anxiety, in my opinion. So yes, they're very much linked together, and people kind of sort of don't get that. And I'm not depressed, I'm just anxious, but I do stay in my bed for excessive amount of times, or sleep a lot, or I find myself like feeling hopeless or feeling like I'm worthless and shouldn't be here on this earth, having passive suicidal thoughts. But no, I'm not depressed. At this point, you are depressed, but your anxiety is the underlying issue of why you are depressed.
And I get a little angry with the DSM because it has major depression with anxiety, but there's not generalized anxiety with depression.
Right. Oh, yes. I really did look for that.
I want to write
because
somebody about it.
It needs to be one, because to me, a lot of the times the anxiety is introducing the depressive symptoms.
Yeah, because they may not have a full diagnosis of depression.
Right.
They may have some depressive symptoms related to their anxiety. So I'm like, I want a specifier. If anyone who writes the DSM is listening, do that, please.
We might be a change for the world. We're going to send it to them.
Lord have mercy.
Proposed edits.
Okay. Major keys to help for managing anxieties. The first one is awareness. You cannot fix an unseen pattern, but once a pattern is revealed, you cannot unsee it. You can spend a lifetime running from it, or you can spend a lifetime coping with it. So until you understand and acknowledge that I do have an issue with anxiety, or anxiety is controlling a piece of my life and making it hard for me to function on a day-to-day, you can't go no further. You can't go no further. And that whole piece of avoiding, like, once you do acknowledge that it's anxiety, you can't shoo it away. You can't just brush it away like it's just going to go away now that I put a name to it and know what it is. It'll just like disappear because I acknowledged it. No, you got to do something about it. So you can either run from it or you can cope with it, because anxiety is one of those things that is probably going to be a lifetime. And you're going to deal with it for a lifetime, and it's going to pop up when you least expect it. The only thing I can say is be prepared and have your toolbox ready. And the way you do that is know your trigger. That's those things that increase your anxiety levels. It can be one or it can be many. One thing I like to add, especially with generalized anxiety, because with social anxiety and agoraphobia, those are linked to very specific things. With generalized anxiety, it's constantly attaching itself to a new worry. So you got to really be careful with that, because to me, I think it got whole tendencies. When it jumped from worry, like you can be worried about your children one day. You can be worried about your children one day, and the next day you're worried about your job. Like, that's how the generalized piece of that anxiety disorder works, because it's not attached to one specific thing. So when you think it got whole tendencies, like, it's not attached to just one individual is out here just
hopping around.
That's a good analogy.
It really is.
Very interesting.
Woke me up.
You be telling your clients that?
Yeah,
Your anxiety got whole tendencies.
I actually do. Maybe that's why my millennials keep coming back.
Probably so, girl.
Get real with them.
Shout out to you.
Know how your body responds when you're triggered. So understanding, is it my heart racing, my thoughts racing, tense body, tunnel vision? Like, what are those things that are happening when you are being triggered, when your anxiety is being triggered in certain spots and areas? Understand your anxiety radar. So to me, I know that at a 5, I can still function with my anxiety. But that's because it took me some time to sit down and understand what a 5 looks like for me.
Mm-hmm.
A 5 for me is just possibly my thoughts racing. But a 10 for me, my body is going to get real hot. I'm going to not, like, my hearing become muffled and nothing around me sounds sane.
Mm-hmm.
My leg starts to shake. And so many different things that goes on with my body personally, where I can know that it's a 5, that my heart's just racing, my thoughts just racing. I need to just stop for a minute, pause and breathe, and I can continue going through with facing this fear. Versus, like, if this is causing me a 10, if I go through this, I'm going to be in the ER.
Mm-hmm.
That's just as simple as that.
And my clients, one thing that they say about rating their anxiety and stuff in that way is that it's helpful because they may be feeling really anxious in that moment, but when they check in with themselves and they see that they're only a 4 or a 5, it's like, okay, well, I'm closer to being calm than I am being completely escalated. So, like, let me keep doing something that can bring me further down.
Mm-hmm. It's like that whole awareness piece. Like, man, it's so many things you could do with awareness.
Or at least maintain this level of anxiety so it doesn't increase.
Right. So if I know standing at this door at this party is already giving me a 5, I'm not going to walk inside of this room knowing that I'm going to escalate all the way to a 10. Mm-hmm. I'm going to figure out how, if 5 is not my calm and a manageable level of anxiety, and I'm getting ready to walk into this party, I need to go back to my car, possibly listen to some music, or stand right there touching that door and listen to something soothing and calming, or tell myself something that's going to encourage me to walk through that door and be able to be at a 4 when I get there. So when I know that 5 is going to set in, because it's another step or a level to my anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And I tell my clients to really, like, sit down in those moments and really unpackage what they're anxious about in the moment. Mm-hmm. So if you have social anxiety, what is it about this particular social situation that's causing your anxiety to flare up? Right. Because if you know that, you can figure out, is this a, like, situational thing, or is this a me thing? Is this something about me that I haven't unboxed and unpackaged? Maybe I need to take a step away, unbox that in this moment, and then I can go and approach that situation.
Right. And that goes back to that situation, like, take a step away and go and probably come back with some more tools. Like, one thing I think about is shopping at Walmart on a Tuesday versus shopping at Walmart on a Sunday after church. Like, if you already know you got social anxiety, if you go to Walmart on a Tuesday, it's not going to be as packed as going to Walmart on a Sunday evening.
You go to Walmart at 12 midnight on a Wednesday.
No, it's not going to be as packed. I don't think it's going to, from my experience. Or think about shopping. This is another one. Think about shopping at Walmart on any given Sunday or any given day versus shopping at Walmart on Black Friday.
Girl, if you shop at Old Navy on a Saturday, that's worse than Walmart on any day.
I believe it. But you got to understand that and know what's going on. There's a big sale. There's things happening inside of Walmart. People are getting out of church, need to prepare for Sunday dinner. Those are all things that if you're thinking and you're aware of your anxiety and your triggers, and you know that those things trigger you, you would avoid it in that moment, or take some skills with you to help you prepare and kind of sort of get that chicken, that pack of chicken that you're going into Walmart for.
Because I'm going to tell you a secret. If I pull up to Walmart and I can't immediately see a parking space, I'll be like, I'm going to go to Food Line. Because I already know there's too many people in there. It's going to take me forever to get out, and I don't have time for that.
Well, you know what? That's a lesson I haven't learned yet, because let me tell you something. It'll be the worst day at Walmart, and I'm like, I'm gonna get this sale. Like, I don't care what the situation is. I'm gonna save my coins. And I go in there and be done went to jail off of, like, saving 10 cents from going to Walmart. From Food Line. I kid you not. Like, I will go to jail.
Oh, God. Our thrifty therapist.
Yeah. I go to jail over a sale now, honey.
You always
Won't
catch
even be
me
able to
in the
use that meat by
mall.
the time I get out. But I'm going to go.
I go to the mall when it first open or when it's
I
about
ain't
to
gone to the mall
close.
in years. I can't rock the mall.
I go when it's about to when it first open or when it's about to close.
No.
In the middle of the week.
Well, first of all, I don't go to the mall because the prices be jacked up. I go to TJ Maxx
and I park whatever store I need to go to. I'm going to park to the closest entrance and exit to that place.
I love it.
You got to know your anxiety.
Yeah, and that's that last part that I want, like introducing yourself to paralyzing or worse anxious situations with strategy. Like everything that y'all have lined up is strategy. Like know your body, assess the anxiety levels as needed, stop and use the tools as needed. Like it's not about how fast you face the anxious situation, but how purposeful and effective your armor is during the fight. So
say that.
Trying to understand it will take you further than trying to just fight or beat it or like how fast can I like remove this situation.
Yeah.
Like, so understanding that, like, get some purpose about it.
And you know, the one thing I will say that just like rang true to me that I have not effectively done, like as long as I've been battling anxiety, I've not one time thought of a strategy in public places. Cause like that'd be too easy. That's too much like right in my life. And
you said it.
I you know, now that you're saying that, I'm like, God, I should have some tools to use when I go places. Like before Hurricane Florence, I was at Walmart, and I kid you not, people was in there fighting over water. And this guy, I was in line, was this woman and this guy, and she was, you know those folks that ain't really handicapped, but they be in them handicapped carts, but you know they ain't really handicapped.
How you know?
Cause they not.
They not handicapped.
Yeah, no, because when I see you get out the car, like I watch you. When I see you when you get out that car and you start putting your groceries in it, like you could have did that. If you're not 600-pound life size, I don't need you to be out here riding.
They might got an issue, like a
little
issue where they can walk around the store.
Car, no, if you can get out the car and put the groceries in your trunk.
Finish your story.
Either or. So, like, she kept rolling up on my ankles.
Oh.
And you already know I have a space issue.
This is the real reason.
Yeah.
This is the real issue.
So, like, my issue was this, and then she was blocking the whole, like, walk area. Like, you know how people walk past the registers and stuff? She was blocking the whole area, but then, like, when people would come, she would ride up on my ankle. And so the whole time I was texting, I was like, please, Lord, you know, keep me near the cross. I was texting my mom and my sister. I was like, keep me near the cross. And I'm like, spaz. And then she looked at me. She was like, oh, am I bumping into you? I said, yes, ma'am, you are. And so instead of standing behind the car, I was like, I'm standing beside the car. You bumping the car. I don't want you bumping into my ankles. But then she was so close in this little motorized scooter cart. That was just like, that's why I know you can walk. Because you don't even know how to drive it. You're not even used to driving it. So that's why I know you can walk. You see the logic behind that? No. Yeah, seriously. If you knew how to drive it, that means you've been using them for a while. But because you keep running into stuff, and the assumption is you don't know how to drive it. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry, keep going. Girl, that just raised my blood pressure right then. I got it all over again. Go ahead.
This might help you because I have a lot of millennials who have chronic pain.
I mean, well, then let me get in the scooter then. If it's just all about chronic pain.
No, but these pains is if they don't. That's one of
unless you have fibromyalgia, get your ass out of there.
But you wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't know it by looking.
If you have fibromyalgia, that means that everything hurts. But why you putting groceries in the trunk if your hands hurt?
But listen.
Okay, Nikayla.
How they gonna get them out though? You got the cart. You got to get the stuff out. There was a whole guy with her. It was two people. You remember I said it was a man and a woman.
I was trying to give her.
If your whole body hurts like 5 miles, why are you picking up groceries?
This is black.
You gotta just get in the car and let him do it.
You need some gray area here. Mm-hmm. Because maybe she don't have a he to do it.
He was with her.
Well, that's fine. That situation, okay. But you can't attach it to all.
She might have been well enough to take the groceries out, but she's not well enough to walk around Walmart.
I'm not well enough half the time, but you don't see me scooting around the Walmart.
But that's your
you are well enough.
Sometimes I'm not.
But that's your prerogative. I wouldn't judge you if you needed the car. because I've learned.
Okay, well then we all see me scooting around.
I'm going to judge you because you are able-bodied.
I don't want nobody to say nothing.
Because I don't know.
Maybe I'm gonna take myself a selfie. Like y'all see me on the car.
I don't know your internal struggles.
Right, but I know hers because if I was doing anything, she put water in the trunk. Like who does that?
Pause. Thank you, Kay. I really appreciate your corner
I'm sorry.
and all these helpful tidbits that you have given
I have
us
one
regarding.
last
Oh, my bad.
Lord,
For people like Dani. Nah, for real. The last piece I wanted to close off is how to support a person who suffers from anxiety.
Yeah, y'all support me.
We try.
Don't judge me when I get on my skin.
I'm not.
I am.
Sash I'm not. I'm gonna help you. And I'm gonna help carry your groceries.
Yeah.
I ain't helping
You gotta know. One thing is, if you know a person suffers from anxiety, get to know that person's anxiety. Well, yeah, get to know that person's anxiety. Know their triggers, including phrases you might say, like, because you may be very well a trigger to things such as like, "Ain't nothing wrong with you, girl. Suck it up. You'll be all right.
Like
Breathe through it," and things.
So now we know if we go with Dani to Walmart, we say, all right, there may be people in here in these carts. Focus on yourself.
I don't mind you scooting around as long as you're not hitting my ankles.
We will try to avoid all.
There's going to be a lot of people
roles.
in here.
If I put the basket on my back,
Take your
it's
deep
a problem.
breaths before we walk in here. We know you've got space issues. Take your breaths. Take your breaths.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. A step further from knowing their triggers is also knowing their coping skills, because a piece of anxiety, and I know for me personally, because I suffer from anxiety, is that sometimes I become impulsive and I start to think irrationally. And if I have a social support with me, beside me, a mutual support beside me that knows what my coping skills are and my triggers, that can kind of sort of coach me back into understanding and knowing, like, girl, you know you're supposed to breathe in and out. Square breathe. Do it. Right. Go. Slow down. Turn your list on. Like, if someone can coach me into that, it can help bring me back into a reality of knowing that I'm thinking irrationally. So know their coping skills. Ask if they prefer silence or encouragement.
Because I prefer silence. Don't tell me
That's
what
what
to
I
do.
was about to say. But it depends on how far up my radar I am. So that might be interesting to know the person's radar, their anxiety radar. Because if I'm a 5, you can continue to encourage me and talk to me and help me. Or like a 7 or 5 to 7, you can continue to encourage me and help me through it. But if I'm at a 10, tell me to use my coping skills, but hush after that. Say, girl, coping skill.
I don't even want you to say that. I'm like, you're not going to tell me what to do.
Well, for me, you can tell me that. But understand, like, for Dani, she just wants you to shut up. For me, it depends on where I'm at with my anxiety levels, that you can talk to me versus I need silence, because at this point, everything is muffled around me. So you got to know what your levels are. Validate and not minimize the experience for that person, because you don't know what's going on in the inside. You don't know what they're internalizing, and you don't know what they're feeling. So validate and minimize. It doesn't mean that you have, that's you saying, girl, yes, anxiety's the worst. I know, like, it doesn't mean you have to go overboard, but not kind of sort of minimizing, like, just brush it off. Just, girl, just hush. Come on, we're going to get through this together. Walk, continue to walk. Just taking a breath and being there for that person. Being present, in a sense, is basically what you're doing when you're validating and not minimizing. Make anxiety-related achievements anxiety-related achievements a celebration. It's a big deal, guys. Like, for me to kind of sort of face a fear, it's a big deal for me. But if I know my social support surround me is making it a big deal, I'm going to be further inclined to continue down this journey to accepting my anxiety, being open about it, as well as wanting to grow further, versus isolating myself and trying to not talk about it and coping with it alone. So make the achievements known and understandable, that I get it, girl, that was a big deal for you. Let's celebrate. We're going to go get Dani some Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
You right, girl. You know me. You my friend. Jerry Garcia on deck.
But that is it for Kay's Corners. I hope it was informative and get you guys to talking about your dealings with anxiety, whether it's a disorder or just like some things that cause some dysfunction. May not be a disorder, but some things may escalate. the anxiety levels to a point where it could at some point turn into a disorder.
Thank you so much, Kay.
Thanks, Kay.
Thank you.
You guys are welcome. I hope it was helpful just as much as for me.
It was. Alrighty, guys. So, for Sister Circle this week, staying on theme, we're going to be talking about anxiety. And, you know, although one of us is a piglet, we all have our own struggles with anxiety. And when I say piglet, if you are familiar with Winnie the Pooh, Piglet was the friend who was always very anxious and nervous every time they did something. They always had to give Piglet a pep talk. And that is true in form to somebody that has anxiety. So think about, you know, the people in your life who might fall in that category. What my first question though is, we've seen an increase in that kind of piglet behavior amongst people. Like, anxiety seems to be more and more prevalent. So what do you think has caused that increase in anxiety?
The media. The reason why I say the media is because, like, I don't know if it's like at a certain age as an adult you have to watch the news. Like, I don't know when that started.
You got to.
But it's like you have so many things going on in the world, like random shootings, school shootings, you know, people getting this, people getting that. And it's almost like it instills a level of fear, which is underlying for anxiety. I noticed that in this last few, maybe up to a decade, I've noticed that the increase of social media has caused people anxiety as well, because there was this thing where, like, at one point you would scroll down your social media and you would see like a fight, or you would see somebody get killed, or you would see this, or you would see that, and you would just scroll and it would just start playing, or you would see the stills of it or whatever. And that has to instill a level of fear into you as well. So I would say, like, between the news and the media, those things.
I have a hypothesis too that with technology advancing, you know, with progress comes more responsibility. And so now that we have all of these things, we have access to all of this stuff, then that puts pressure on people to have to reach certain levels or accomplishments. Like, if you think about our kids, back when we were in school, the highest GPA you could get was a 4.0. Now kids are getting 5.0s and beyond, and like the only way you can get into college is for you to have this ridiculous GPA that requires you to take all these AP and IB classes and all that other kind of stuff, in addition to having volunteer experience, playing some sports, doing extracurriculars, having a job. It's like, all of that stuff is feasible, but it also comes with a lot of anxiety and a lot of responsibility to be able to excel in all of these areas. And so think about if that's the same kind of pressure that we have as adults when we have all these different roles, you being a mom, you being an employee, you being a wife, you being a friend, cousin, whatever, all these things. And we don't put enough, people don't say no enough. Like, we don't turn down these roles and responsibilities because that's the norm. So it just makes us anxious. What y'all think?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Cici in the Twilight Zone right now. So getting a little more personal, because y'all know that I would.
Sure.
What are y'all symptoms of anxiety?
I'll go last. Mine's probably longest.
One of the biggest ones for me the ones that you would probably notice first, because I will like suppress and keep it away from everybody, is irritation. If I snap at you like in a random split second, or I snap at something and you're around, there's probably something bothering me. But one of the biggest things is probably my silence outside of the irritation. So it's like a hot and cold situation for me. Mm-hmm. So either I'm really quiet and to myself, or I'm snapping on everything that comes around. And so, and like sometimes my thoughts race to the point where I get headaches because there's so much going on. my heart does not actually beat fast. It's almost like that accelerated heart that's in there. It doesn't beat fast, but I feel like it slows down. And the reason I say it, I feel like it slows down is because I can hear it. It's that piece where I can hear it in my ears, and it seems like the loudest thing ever, and it's beating excessively slow. My face become very, if I was light skinned or of another race, you'll probably be able to see that it was red, but it's very hot. It becomes very
like
hot, very flushed. My leg, it shakes when I'm super anxious and something, and I have this habit of rocking. Like I will rock back and forth, and people don't get it. And now that I think about it, I had it when I was younger as well, and people always just say, "Stop, girl, what's wrong with you? Just stop." And I would literally get in trouble, like a consequence for rocking or moving excessively. That's another thing, moving excessively. I would get into trouble because my mom didn't know what to do with me, basically. Honestly, I didn't know what to do with myself because I didn't know what was going on. And even it became a habit of like me feeling like I'm rocking and I'm shaking. That means I'm becoming overly anxious. Therefore, I try to suppress it and push it away. And so it caused the irritation because I can't. It's still there. It's still constantly coming in and out, in and out, in and out, and I can't slow it down. So those are some of my major symptoms.
Cici?
What case it?
Don't you try it.
All of that.
No, really, some of those things. I definitely am I try to be a suppressor, and I internalize everything. I get a lot of stomach aches when I feel anxious about things. I get a lot of headaches when I'm anxious about a lot of things. I think for me, that piece where you were talking about the depression and the anxiety link. That's me all day long because when I'm super anxious about things, I can't do anything about it. Like I can't do anything about it. I don't know what to do. And so then I get really discouraged, and then it's a snowball effect. So that's my anxiety. I cry a lot, but that might be depression.
You also are unusually quiet, and it's like all over your demeanor. It's just like, oh, something wrong with her today.
Yeah, am I going next? So, with my anxiety, I have a lot of symptoms. And a lot of times my symptoms are tied to things. And sometimes they're just random. Like, I sometimes don't actually have a real trigger. Like, I could be walking up the stairs with a laundry basket, and all of a sudden I have an anxiety attack. And then when I'm done, I'm like, well, what was it? You know, like, I have to look back, like, what was it? I have racing heartbeat. I have migraines and headaches, big time. Sometimes I can lose my vision or my hearing. Vision is like, it'll go like staticky, kind of like an old school TV. It'll be like that black and white staticky. Hearings, everything just sounds extremely far away when it could be like right here in my ear. I shake. I get cold sweats or hot flashes. Cold sweats are really weird for me because like the house will be like the perfect weather and temperature, and all of a sudden I can feel like cold sweats, which I already know is like an out of body experience. But I run, so my fight, flight, or freeze. I'm a runner. I run. Well, I freeze too. When I get anxiety, I can freeze or run. But there have been situations where, like, I remember that situation with the kickball thing at work. I kid you not.
You trying to take me out, like
I was like, Sasha gonna have to be the one to go down. I don't know what to tell you. I run.
But Cici held me down.
You right. Good for her. I get very nervous, very fidgety. Like, hey, I rock back and forth. But my mom told me my aunts did that too, so I think that may be where that came from. Other than that, I would say I have a big space issue. So anytime somebody's too close to me, I like go into my shell. Like, I literally will, like, you can almost physically see it, I'm pretty sure. Like, as soon as someone gets too close to me, I literally, like, I don't know how to explain it. I just like turn into like a ball, and I get very like, I don't know, cocoonish. That's about it. Yeah. Oh, and I have issues with sleep because I have worrying thoughts over and over and over and over again, and I can't sleep because I can't cut my brain off.
Ooh, that's so normal in my routine. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. I only get it every once in a while because normally I sleep like a log. But other than that, yes. When I do have worry, like extra worry, I will not sleep for days.
And to attach, like, because I have generalized anxiety, my worry and with the sleep disruption, it doesn't have to be over something that's like negative. It doesn't have to be something that's going to go wrong, because I can wake up in the middle of the night with a creative thought, and in my mind, if I don't get up and do it then, it's going to go away. That's the anxiety portion of it.
Well, see, mine could be something like the next day I'm going to take a flight somewhere, and
it's
a flight going to go down. Like, I'll make something positive straight negative. Like, instead of thinking like, oh, I'm about to go like out of the country, I'm like, but is the flight going to get me there? Like, am I going to die? Am I going to get kidnapped? Like,
it's that unknown, man. That thing is.
You also be like real scary, and you ask a lot of questions. Like...
I do ask a lot of questions. I'm very inquisitive when I have anxiety, and the reason why is because it's the unknown. I don't like the unknown, and it's a level of control. Like, if I don't have control, like I don't play those games. I have a lot of OCD as well. Like, I can't walk out of a room with the cabinets open. Like, this door over here is killing me. I don't even know why I'm sitting on this side. But, like, I can't walk out of a room with the cabinets. I've checked the locks numerous times. I look out of the peephole a couple times. Like, I have those type of, like, OCD symptoms, compulsions. I literally cannot do certain things. Like, I have to wash the dishes before I go to sleep. I have to clean my car out before I get out of the car. Like, it's just random things that I do that are, like, anxiety, OCD-ish.
And we get you out your element when you ride with me and Sash, and you always ask Cici to ride. I noticed that. We would be the last people she asked for a ride. She asked Cici first.
No, because you like to take the same route everywhere you go, and that route be around the world and back again. And I'd be like, hey, you could have just cut it left. She's like, could. You know me, once I get a route, that's it. I'm like, hey, you could have literally. Sasha drives recklessly.
First of all, can you really speak?
We're talking about other people. We're not talking about me.
I was going to say, I legitimately have to, like, have my phone out and stuff when I'm in the car with you, because I really think I'm going to die.
Most people do. But we're talking about other people in my anxiety. We're not talking about my anxiety. When I ride with myself, I don't think I'm going to die. You know what I'm saying? It's not my anxiety.
The most reckless thing I do is not use signal lights.
Okay.
Whatever. Moving forward. So, when I'm anxious, I'm very fidgety. So I'm like very restless. I'm doing something with my hands. I'm rocking. I'm shaking. I'm stretching something. I'm moving. I can't stay still. Because my thoughts are also not still. So my thoughts are racing. I'm thinking about this thing and that thing. It's very difficult for me to concentrate or like really focus on one task. I'm one of those people that will start something. It's like half anxiety, half ADHD. We don't really know which one of my things is most predominant. But I might start something and then I'm thinking so hard and I don't finish it because I start working on something else. I procrastinate because of my anxiety, because I'm just like overthinking it. I'm trying to think of what else. I can like shut down and just, it, like Cici said, it can slide into depression sometimes too if I'm feeling anxious about something. And generally you can tell if I'm anxious because I'm just off. Like, it's like I have a general level of functioning, and then it's like, what's going on with her? She been real something. Pray for Sash today. It'd be like, you know that I'm anxious on those days. It's like, where is she? She's like a ping pong ball. All right, next question. What are your main triggers for anxiety?
People. It's weird because like I can turn it on and off. Like when I'm in a session, I don't mind people, but like when I'm out in the real world, I'm like, yo, I despise people. Like, hate them. So people, and it's not a certain type of people, it's just all people. I don't discriminate. But, and then you know what else bothers me? Triggers my anxiety. Like when I'm places and people start getting loud, Have you ever been there? I was at the Family Dollar the other day. Why do I always say the Family Dollar? Because it's literally not the. But I was at the Family Dollar the other day, and this guy was getting upset because I was in there for like leaf ins and random stuff because I was like, I'm gonna think outside of the box because everybody's trying to get these things for this hurricane. So I'm like, I'm gonna go get like random stuff from Family Dollar, and this guy got like you could hear him in the back getting really loud. You hear him in the back getting really loud. And all of a sudden I was like, I literally was like, I deer in headlights. Like, I didn't know, like, because when you automatically assume, like, oh, he about to kill us all. Like, well, maybe it's just me automatically assume.
Yep.
Maybe it's just me.
Yep.
But he started getting, like, his voice, like, picked up. So, like, I don't like loud noises when I'm places. Like, I don't like guns backfire. Cars backfire, like, fireworks. I don't like any loud noises. People, like, if we drop something, it makes me, like, I don't like no loud noises. People, anything.
What else?
I don't think that's it.
That ain't it. But Cici?
It really just depends on what it is, but mainly it's just, like it's really just general. When I don't know what to expect about a situation, like my anxiety will really peak up. I don't like loud noises either. I do not do balloons. If you bring a balloon in here,
Yeah.
I can't do
I had a
that.
past experience.
I'm not watching balloons for like birthdays.
Yeah.
She probably let them go in there.
Could have saved my money.
See, and your anxiety ain't that bad because, like, if people bring balloons, like, I could do the helium ones, but if you bring, like, some balloons, like, I have not gotten into a vehicle because I'm like, I can't be trapped in here with these balloons.
Mine's actually gotten better, but yeah, I don't do balloons. But it's really, like, just situational stuff. If I just do not know what to expect. Anything brand new.
Anything.
I mean, don't matter what it is. If it's something that's new that I've got to do and I've never done it before, my anxiety is going to be extremely high. So, I think my anxiety is racist.
Huh?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't like being around a lot of black people.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Oh, really?
And to be specific, is it just black people or black girls? Black women.
Black girls.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. That's really not uncommon, especially when it is a pain point.
I thrive in those situations.
I don't. I don't. That's real. Mine is very generalized as well. It's always the unknown. And I put on Facebook one day that anxiety hates the unknown because it attaches to the worst case scenario at all times.
Yes, sir.
And that is very true for me. And I noticed recently a trigger is my kids being out of my presence. That's a real big trigger, like a constant, repetitive like type of trigger for me. It's the unknown of general as well, but those are my kids. I don't like crowded places. Too many people in crowded places, so I would choose Triangle Town Center over Crabtree. I would choose Food Line over Walmart on a Sunday. Just small things like that, kind of sort of. So it's very generalized. That's why it's like it's not a major trigger. Like one trigger is many for me. I just gotta know and be prepared to be ready.
Yeah, I don't like busyness. Like, I don't like being in any situation where I'm overstimulated. So the way my hypervigilance is set up, I'm the fight. Maybe I'll run, but it's like I'm gonna protect myself first. So when I'm in
That's a lot. Because you be in situations and you just be sitting there. I feel like you gotta freeze.
Sometimes I freeze, but I fight.
Freeze.
When I freeze.
When the kickball girl came and she was about to come, I'm telling you was about to. You just sat there.
I was in my office.
Okay, there's other offices you could have went to. You could have ran.
That was her fight experience. She was gonna protect her space.
Right, me and Cici were going to fight our way out of there. No, she didn't.
Okay.
We made eye contact. First of all, literally, I got the words out of my mouth and you ran. So you don't know what our responses. You don't know what our responses were going to be.
Okay, cool.
Are you done?
Go on now.
Going back and forth with you, nigga. So.
Watch your mouth.
I don't even know.
You was telling a lie. That's what we're talking.
Anywho, so I'm a fighter, and so whenever I feel very overstimulated, I get anxious because I don't know
Which side
I don't know who I need to attack. I don't know what to do. So it's like it's too many things to battle. So then that might make me freeze and like get shut down because I'm like, they're gonna overpower me no matter what. So I don't put myself in situations where there's a lot happening. Or I will like mentally check out. So like sometimes when y'all are having conversations with me and like I'm not paying attention at all, it's because there's a lot happening and so I'm choosing to listen to nothing.
Nice to know. What? Nice to know. I believe you.
It's too many. It'll be like too many conversations happening at once.
That's
and
what
so,
Cici just did earlier. She was like, "I'm getting overwhelmed."
Yeah. So I'll just stop and I'll be quiet, and then y'all be like, "Sash," and I'll be like, "Oh, my bad. Me? Okay."
I just assumed that was your ADHD.
It's a little bit of that too. Other things. So like I get really anxious when it comes to like transitions. Not in newness, but like transition. So if I've got because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not prepared. I'm really good at making a plan and figuring stuff out. But like when you throw me into like a new situation, I ain't got it figured out yet. So I need a little bit of time to figure out what's going to happen next. And I also have a little bit of perfectionism. So I'm like going into that situation like I'm going to fail. But yeah, I think those are like my main anxiety triggers. Dudes. Y'all know, like, if you... Matter of fact, I said dudes, find dudes. So, like, if... Y'all know me. Y'all know me.
Not
like
Herman Munster.
If an ugly dude come up, it's like, okay. Let's shut this down. Let's shut this down. But like if we're on an equal playing field or more, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like in this battle, we could go tit for tat, and I don't know if I'm prepared. So I'm like mad standoffish. Or sometimes I'm like that in like social situations. Like if I can't figure the people out, I'm just like, I'm mad quiet and standoffish because I'm like, I need to feel you out first before I interact because I'm very energy sensitive. So
yes, I gotta decide if I like you first,
yeah,
before I even interact with you.
But it's crazy because when it comes to clients, like I'm fine.
Walk through the door, total stranger,
and I can be super social, but I would just be like, nope.
Yeah.
Any other triggers that anybody thought of?
I'm very awkward too.
Yeah.
So in situations,
I mean, I was agreeing. I am too. I was agreeing with you. It wasn't a shot. But you are.
I'm very awkward in certain situations. It's weird because I'm very much like it depends on me because y'all know I could be very like extroverted, but then I could be extremely introverted at like a couple minutes later. When I'm in my introverted mode, I get real like I'll tongue tie and say the wrong thing, and then like I say the wrong thing. Like somebody be like, "Have a good day," and I'll be like, "Jesus, well," like I'll say something so random, and then like, and I'm just like, "Why did I say?" And then I'll like beat myself. Then my anxiety flares up. But I'll say something like somebody will go on for a damp and I'll try to like handshake them. Or I don't know. But I have like the most awkwardness to be like extroverted at the same time. So like when I get into situations where I don't know what to say, that's when my anxiety creeps up.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, very, very present.
That's weird.
Very present.
But yeah, I think that's
it. So how are you guys managing this anxiety that you have?
I ain't. Who next?
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm managing mine.
I feel like I am too.
I come to the conclusion these past few weeks that I need to go see somebody because I'm out here like I think it's gotten worse. Actually, my anxiety has.
No, it's because you just all alone. We not having our times no more.
Your whole crew has shifted inside of us. Yeah, there's a lot of changes for all of us.
Changes. Y'all out here being Lone Rangers right now.
Yeah.
For the first time in 4 years.
Yes, Lord. But I would say I'm very purposeful of what I allow into my space. That is how I am managing it. So if I know that my anxiety is heightened after work or it's a lot going on at work, very purposeful of what I listen to. So if it's a podcast I'm going to throw on, I'm very purposeful with my playlist. We've talked about that before. Lately, I've been trying to get into some meditation. It ain't sticking. I don't know if it's ADHD that's going on
I think so too.
It's just not sticking for me.
Yes, it's hard to do.
In guided imagery, the only thing that sticks is the floating on the cloud lady.
Yeah.
This is because she put me to sleep. She's so boring.
Yeah.
But other than that, nothing else stick. But that whole my music and my podcast, they get me through long days because another trigger for my anxiety is traffic. I just thought about that traffic because I got into a 3-car pileup accident.
I'm glad you said that because a girl be up out here in the car like with a stomach ache because it doesn't matter, like I just clench up. That is a symptom. So when I'm anxious, I'm either really tense in my shoulders or really tense in my stomach, and I'll be like in pain. But in a car, if I can't be in no middle lane, I need to be on one of the outer lanes, preferably the fast one, because I drive. Hush. But I don't like it when people look like they're gonna merge over and stuff because I've been sideswiped. So it's just like I be in the car on like head on swivel. And so I have road rage and I be real irritable. Shut up. I be real irritable because I'm real anxious. Thanks, Kay.
Mine is my bowels get weak.
We're having a real sister circle.
Yeah, it's a real sister circle. I mean, because people can identify.
Yeah. You right though, because you be real gassy.
I get real gassy, and it's just like, and then like it'd be the gas that you can't clench, like you can't hold it in. Like it'd be aggressive gas. Like normally you get the regular gas. No,
get the bubble guts.
Yeah, get the bubble guts, and it's like
I had it on
like it's like your stomach drops. Like you ain't had nothing to eat. It's just your stomach drops, you get gassy, and then it's like, oh, I just gotta go. Yeah. So yeah, I ain't think about that either.
Oh Jesus.
Well, I guess how I manage my anxiety is, so I know a lot of these things about myself, and so I just try to prepare in advance. So, like, if I know I'm going to be in the car for a long time, I try to go ahead. I got this, like, pillow that I have, and it's got, like, a little massager. Most of the time, sometimes I forget it, and that's in here or there. But I try to, like, listen to something that's going to distract me so I'm not really focused on the road. Or if I know, I try to evaluate social situations before I get in them. So, like, I'm that friend where you be like, yeah, do you want to come to such and such? I'm always going to ask who's coming. And don't take it as a, like, thing. It's like, I need to know who is going to be around so I know how I'm going to act. So I know how I can prepare myself. Do I need to be very kind and bubbly? Like, what do I need to do to chameleon this situation? Or like when it comes to just my mood in general, like sometimes I know I need to be real heavy in my like gospel and like my sermons or my Super Soul Sundays and stuff like that because something's off with me, and so I don't need to take in a lot of pop culture or stuff like that. I really just need to like get focused and get grounded for a certain period of time. I've been trying to do a lot more yoga to get myself comfortable with being uncomfortable because that's a struggle. But lately I found that it's very hard to calm my mind in meditation or in yoga. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But before, I was doing a really good job of just being able to like meditate and like not stop the thoughts, but at least slow them down and observe them like you're supposed to when you meditate. So I got some little skills, whatever.
I like to tell, like for myself, when you were talking about having a lot of things all at once to deal, like I tell people to always have a 3-tier plan.
Yeah.
Like in my car, like I said, I have a podcast that's always stay ready to hit play on, whether it's ours or somebody else's. I have a playlist that I would click on, and I have contacts that I would call, whether it's calling my mom or calling my husband on the way home. So if one of those, most of the time, one of those three things will work. And sometimes I have to use all three in a combination, even if it's only a 30-minute drive. Maybe it's 10 minutes talking to somebody, 10 minutes listening to a podcast, and 10 minutes listening to my playlist. But I got to be very purposeful which one that I'm going to allow into my space, because I may not be have the energy to listen to a podcast or observe what they're actually talking about, versus I need to turn up because it's time for the 99 and 2000.
I mean,
you just gotta decide which one you gotta be, but have that 3-tier plan so you one fail and you just give up on the whole thing because you don't have a backup.
So I do have 2 strategies that I think have been helping me a lot in anxiety, and I lie if I say I don't. I do a lot of positive self-talk and deep breathing. My 3rd day at my new job, and I never told y'all this because I was so embarrassed.
Let the shame go.
So I had packed a box of things that I needed to bring into the office, like a lamp, other stuff. And I had keys to get into the office, so I put the box down, and I opened the key, and then I squatted down to get the box, and I split my... I split my pants like from literally the top of my ass to the bottom. Like, it was bad.
Oh my God.
So at that point I was like, all right, you got 2 options. Like, it ain't so much you can do in this moment. You got 2 options. You can go home, you're gonna be late, it's your 3rd day, that's not a good thing. You can go in there and have a conversation with your supervisor. But and so I ran into my office with my box. Now later on I realized that we got cameras all over. So I ran into my office and I put my hoodie, because we had work hoodies. I put my hoodie on low enough that you couldn't. And so I walked into my office and I was like, hey, I talked to my coworker. I was like, hey, I just want to, can I go home? And she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I ripped my pants. She was just like, she said, is it a bad rip? Like, you can't sew it? I said, I probably could sew it. I said, I don't have anything. She said, I have something. And so, like, she gave me this full sewing kit. She just randomly has everything in her office. So she gave me this full sewing kit. She said, go to the bathroom, lock the door. She said, just sew it back. So while I'm in there, I'm having the worst thoughts. Like, she thinks I'm the worst person in the world. I just slipped my pants on my 3rd day. Like, and then I'm starting to hyperventilate because I'm like, this is the 3rd. And I was in there literally like on the toilet, just sewing my pants. Just ass out, just sewing my pants. And I was in there so long, I just did a double stitch because I didn't want to go back out. So finally I said, okay. And then I literally do the same hand. I just like, okay, I'm pushing it down. I'm going to deep breathe. And I did my deep breathing and I did my pop. I was like, you're not going to die. You're not the first person who's ripped your pants. Like, I literally had to go through it. And then when I came out, I put my sewing machine. She said, I just did that like 2 weeks ago. And it was just like, okay. Like, that was the last thing. But like, when you walk into the office and there's cameras around and your whole butt is out, like, I literally was like, God. Say a little prayer for me. But now that I'm looking back on it, I can laugh. But in that moment, I knew the door was going to open up, and I was just dying in that moment. Like, it was bad. But I've been doing a lot more. When I have my anxiety attacks, I do a lot of positive self-talk and deep breathing because it just helps. It really does. Like, I'm like, girl, you're not going to die. You're not going to die. Be quiet. You about to cook this for dinner. Like, keep your mind off of it. So, yeah, that helps. Whew. Well, I can let that out. Because I was going to tell y'all, but I was like, they're going to
laugh at you.
Laugh at you, yeah. I wasn't ready to be laughed at that point.
You know,
That's
people
real.
sewing
That's a coping
kids.
skill right
Yeah,
there.
like, I'm
You know when to release it.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes.
But yeah. But when you feel that wind chap on your butt in the morning, 5:30, girl, let me tell you something.
And it be the loudest rip, don't it? It be like.
And like normally when you rip your pants, I rip them on random places, but it was like the whole ass line. Like I was like, dang. I sewed them back up. I'm gonna take them to the because those are my thrift pants. Those are good pants. Get my sewing machine out and put another stitch in them things.
They probably wouldn't see the light of day again, in my opinion. I'm glad you facing that, but
you're personally,
they probably would go back to the thrift store because I'm gonna donate them again.
But yeah, so positive self-talk, deep breathing. What's the next question?
Cici, there's a very obvious thing that you do when you're feeling anxious that you've just not said anything about.
I pray.
Duh.
There are times when I can't even do that. But luckily, I've got people who I can be like, hey, I need somebody else to pray for me. So that's always good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't have Sasha pray for you. She'll fall asleep.
First of all, actually, while you're trying to comfort me,
like, dear God,
actually now,
Danielle have a list of her own things.
Yeah. Before we get to Cici,
right. No, I actually have been praying in a different way. I try to pray on the spot when things happen, so I don't have to say these long prayers that I'm going to fall asleep on. I also have been like journaling prayers to just write them out, and I can't fall asleep while I'm writing. So, boom.
Well, here's the thing. I think that, you have to go to the right people for prayers. Like, I always go to my mom for prayers, but then there's certain people that I'm just like, nah, I don't want you praying for me. You need prayer for yourself. But, I mean, it's real. Like, I'll be like, Cici, go ahead and throw up a prayer. But I'm not gonna be like, Sash, hey, can you throw a prayer up for me? Because God is still working on you. But I would just say,
you don't know
but
me,
I would just say, in terms of like people who, there are certain people that I would say, can you pray for me? Yeah.
I'm glad you don't ask.
I don't know what you
moving forward.
About to God, about me.
On a non-petty note, because
why do you say that? I don't know what you be talking to God about me. About. I'm like, is there a blast about supposed to be in there? I don't know. Go ahead.
I already told you before, I'm not going to go back and forth with you. So on a positive note, I ask God to, for your well-being. Like, I pray that you are well. I pray for all these things that you be doing that don't make no sense to me. I'll be like, Lord, help her make sense of it. It don't got to make sense to me, but let it make sense to her.
Okay. What's the next question?
That's it? You just pray? That's all? It's your only strategy?
I'm pretty sure I have other strategies.
You listen to music?
I do listen to music.
Music is babe. Why did I say that? And candles.
I listen to music. I pray. When I'm able to, I can sort of talk it out. I do a lot of journaling still, writing. So yeah.
And I didn't say this, but I do keep fidgets with me, generally all of the time, so that I can do that whole thing. What is your self-talk to manage your anxiety?
I just tell myself I'm not going to die. And a lot of it is because, like, most of my symptoms come all at the same time, and it makes you feel like you're having a heart attack, and you're not going to make it out. I remember, and I think I said this in one of the episodes, when I get to the point where, like, my vision's gone, my heart's beating fast, I'm losing my hair, and I'm like, is this death? Like, you don't know what death feels like. And I freak myself out so much, and I'm like, all right, like, you're not going to die. And then as I'm saying it, I can literally feel my senses coming back. But, like, I literally have to tell myself, like, I'm not going to die. Like, this isn't it. Now, just in case I do die, I want somebody to say that in my eulogy. She told herself properly she wasn't going to die. And here we are.
Taking over the residuals of what Dani just said, to add to my list as well. I also am very purposeful with asking myself what lesson did I learn once I was in this situation before. Because most of the time I've seen something similar like this before. Like, how did I get through it before to help me understand that I've been through it before and I can get through it this time. So that helps me to progress on to the next spot. I rehearse and I sit down and I come up with 1,000 motivational quotes. If anybody that knows me knows that's just my thing. And most of the time when I come up with like 5 or 6 in a day, I know that my anxiety levels probably need to be checked because I'm avoiding something else. Like, but that's a part of my self-talk as well. Like, I wake up with a Bible scripture. I'm on day 210, on track. But that became very purposeful for me to wake up, and I can't do anything before that. And that sets me to know that I got to say something positive to myself at the end of that, because I'm going to say a prayer and I'm going to set myself on the right track for the day. So that's been very beneficial for me and making my self-talk very purposeful and intentional, that I can't miss it.
I think for me, scripture is very, very important for me. Thinking about like just fear and anxiety is so much of that written in the Bible about that. Like, so there's lots of things to go to when it comes to having some positive self-talk. But I think also for me too, I just think about my last situation. I'm like, okay, Lord, I got out of this time, so why don't I think I'm gonna be able to get through this time? So just looking back at other situations and things that I've done or that I've had anxiety around, and knowing that it's cool, I'm gonna get through it. It's one step at a time, one step at a
time. Lately, I've been having a lot of anxiety about doing new things or stepping out of my comfort zone. And so specifically my self-talk has been like, all right, first of all, anything that you are doing right now, God gave you the idea. So if he gave you the idea, he gave you the ability to do the thing. So stop doubting yourself and do the thing. Most of my self-talk is really about pushing me to stop being scared and just do it, or saying stuff like, at the end of the day, and I tell my clients this all the time, I have gone through a lot of stuff in my life, and if there's nothing that I can do, it is bounce back from some BS. And so, worst case scenario in these situations, if I do something and it fails, we know that I can bounce back from that. But I have to also asking myself, like, why are you so scared to succeed is one of the things that I've been working on lately, and just having grace with myself and being like, all right, players mess up and you messed up today. We'll try this again tomorrow. We'll try this. We'll do something right now in this moment that'll make this situation a little bit better. Last one for our listeners. Do you guys have any other tips for things that they should try? Because we haven't talked a whole lot about specific tips or skills. What tips would you give them for managing their anxiety?
First and foremost, understand you are not alone. And going back to like Kate's corner, just be aware. Like, just understand what your signs and symptoms are. Go talk to somebody about them. Get you some tools, because even the ones that we talked about, our personal ones, the ones I talked about in Kate's corner, they may not be the ones needed to help you manage what you're specifically going through.
Right.
So I would say talk to someone about it. That would be my tip.
My tip would be mindfulness. Mindfulness is a game changer. And it really is the idea of being present and being in the here and now. And so when you are mindful and intentional, you're paying attention, you're aware of what's going on, you are more in control. And anxiety has a lot to do with feeling out of control. So try to be mindful, pay attention to, try to ground yourself through your senses. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? Y'all know all the senses. Try to ground yourself by doing activities like that and being mindful, because it really does make a world of difference. You can't control the future, but you can do something in this moment to make yourself feel a little bit better.
I will say, I'm not going to sing it as lovely as Kay did, but yeah, you're definitely not alone. A lot of people battle this. The strategies that I would definitely use, mindfulness, like Sash said, but as well, like I said, positive self-talk and deep breathing helps me. And just imagining yourself in a better situation. Like, I can imagine myself, like, when I'm having these anxiety attacks, like, cooking, like, later on, or, like, doing something fun. Like, just kind of imagining yourself where you need to be, not where you are currently. But, yeah, that helps. Grounding skills help as well. So, but yeah, other than that, I think.
Oh, and you're so right. Like, one thing too that is important to remember is that if you are anxious in a moment, you don't have to stop and figure it. Like, if you're too upset, you gotta know your cutoff of anxiety. At what point do you stop functioning? And it's like, how close are you to that cutoff? Sometimes you can sit down in a moment and try to figure out what's making you anxious and do something. But other times you really just have to distract yourself, do something fun, get your mind off of it, and come back to it later. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with distracting yourself. Avoidance is an issue. Avoiding is forgetting it and never coming back to it. But you can distract yourself. And I actually recommend you distracting yourself when you are anxious.
Right. Especially if it's at an unmanageable point.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you guys for this chit chat about anxiety. Cici, what is your sprinkle?
The Bible says pray and don't worry about anything. You shouldn't be worried about tomorrow. You shouldn't be worried about down to the food or the clothes that you're going to have. And I realized that naturally that's a hard thing to do. I struggle with it all the time. And I'm very heavy into the church. So it is very important to people who are Christians that you do have to be able to have a balance. And I think in the Bible is like 365 times that the word fear is written in there. So there's a scripture for literally every day for you. I think it's important to have a balance and understanding that we are natural bodies. And in our natural self, and the Lord knows this too, in our natural self, that these are the feelings that we're going to have. When you have a relationship with Christ, then your spiritual self, you have to ask for that guidance and ask for those things. And through doing that, you have to read your scripture, you have to pray, you have to be around other people who are also Christians or who believe the same thing that you believe, so that you are not alone in your walk. Everybody's going to go through some things. Clearly today, I'm going through my own stuff, and it's tough, but it's not impossible. And you can do all things through Christ, which is real true. And I have to, like I said, I have to remind myself that all the time. So if you are a Christian, you're struggling, you're thinking like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this, I'm not supposed to be worrying or stressed out. Like, you have to understand that you're human first. Your natural self is first, and that might be your natural reaction. But you just have to go the extra step, go the extra mile to utilize your spiritual self and, getting your prayer, whatever you need to do to calm those fears and those nerves. That's my sprinkle.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That'd be an off the wall sprinkle. It was a good sprinkle.
Yeah. Came from the heart.
It did.
All right. Well, this is a good week. Episode 15?
Yes.
No.
Please.
16.
We're on 16.
Oh well, it's
Check
Kay's
us
fault. She
out.
said 15 earlier. So so please like, follow, share, comment. We are on Instagram as Four Sisters Podcast. We are on Facebook as Four Sisters Podcast. You can hear us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spreaker. I think that's it.
Radio.
And Who Radio?
iHeart.
And iHeartRadio. Let us know if there's anything that you would like to hear from us. Have a great week, guys. And we're out.